The Financial Sector Conduct Authority, FSCA, South Africa's financial regulator, has published a notice on October the 19th indicating that the country's 2002 Financial Advisory and Financial Intermediary Services Act has been updated to include a definition of crypto assets. A decision of this type has been expected for several months, and it brings crypto assets under regulation in South Africa for the first time. The FSCA notice, which went into force on publication in the Green Gazette, the government's Gazette of Record, states that crypto asset is a digital representation of value that can be electronically traded, transferred, and stored, but is not issued by a central bank. Additionally, it applies cryptographic techniques and uses distributed ledger technology. The notice goes on to state that crypto assets are declared financial products. Here's a quote from the general manager of Luno Africa, saying here that, well, Marcus Reitz, general manager for Africa for Luno, the licensing requirement that will flow from this classification will drive high standards in the industry, particularly in relation to consumer protection, with potential investors easily able to identify those providers that satisfy regulatory requirements. Another key benefit is that it should allow financial advisors to formally advise their clients on crypto investments. Kofi Apori is a technology lawyer. He's also a partner with Akron and Mustard. He joins us now to discuss further. Kofi, you're very welcome. The startup bill, what do you make of President Buhari signing it in? What does it mean for the eco sector?
Okay, for what it means, for one, is that the government is saying we identify you guys, we see you guys, and we want to support you guys. We want to make the environment, make ease of doing business is our primary goal. This is what they've been saying since they came to power. So we're trying to support the startup industry. We see you guys, we're supporting you guys, even though we are not doing everything that we are supposed to be doing. But right now, let us making some strides. We are trying to give you some tax cuts, give tax credits to investors who are trying to invest in startups, trying to make Nigeria more attractive, even though we are always seen as fighting startups. But let us take the backseat this time and support startups.
Do you think this will, transcend the next administration and be maintained?
Okay. Now, I'm a very hopeful Nigerian, and I believe I'm very hopeful. And my hope is that we have 3 frontline candidates, and 3 of them all look like businessmen, and businessmen support businesses. Yeah. So I'm believing that whoever wins would most likely support it. And the other thing is that the Nigerian Startup Act is pioneered by a group of stakeholders who are now driving state adoption and implementation. If that is done, even if the federal government doesn't implement it, the next administration decides to push it aside. If enough states like UB, Lagos, and Zamfara and other states adopt it, then it will just naturally transcend into the next administration.
Okay, so good. So it says that we see you, want to work with you. Yes. What does it mean what does the act mean for the growth of the tech ecosystem? Okay,
now the thing is, most startups in Nigeria are usually registered. Most of the unicorns that was mentioned in the report are usually registered in Delaware. They get their investment in their Delaware entity and not in their Nigerian entity. But what the startup bill is trying to do is it's trying to make investors want to invest in the Nigerian entity rather than the Delaware entity by making Nigerian companies have to. So if you are not, first of all, if you are a subsidiary, you cannot be considered a startup. But if you are now registered as only a Nigerian entity and an investor investing, he has 30% tax credits. That sort of makes investors want to invest. Most of the things that make investors afraid of Nigerian markets, minus the fact of the court systems taking time if they want to recover the investment, is also the fact of taxes, because Delaware has lesser taxes. So they are trying to make it more attractive for investors to invest and make Nigerian startups want to stay in Nigeria rather than leave in Nigeria, even though that may not be enough, but at least it's a start.
Is the regulatory environment, I guess, is that the most important metric when you are, you mentioned taxes and so on and so forth, but is that the most important metric when you're looking at the tech ecosystem for Nigeria?
Okay, for Nigeria right now, because the regulators seem to be averse to startups. So, for example, you see what happened with crypto, unlike what South Africa is doing. It seems like what we need is regulators to take their hands off startups, but they cannot fully take their hands off startups because most of the technology startups are dealing with people's money. So, as much as funding and other aspects of things are very important, with the peculiar Nigerian situation, the regulators taking their hands off a little bit and making things easier rather than being aggressive towards startups would be a very good thing. In other climes where the regulators are encouraging startups, then you don't need regulation for, you don't even need a startup bill. But in Nigeria, you sort of need so as to force the hands, because this one brings every regulator to the body, says to the table, says all of you must support startups who we have labeled as startups.
Okay, so you mentioned cryptocurrency. Well, actually, before I get there, the fact that the private sector to some extent was involved in the drafting of this bill, where they worked hand in hand with government, does that, I guess, pave the way for success for this down the line? Since looks like there was collaboration between the two sides.
Yeah, if there's continued collaboration, there will be success.
Okay.
Because right now the government accepted. You hear Mr. Oswald Osaritin, who was the lead at the NSB, saying that they had a big tent approach where everybody could come under and contribute. Now, if they continue with this big tent approach, then there will be success for both parties. If the startups in Nigeria are flourishing, there's more income. I heard the last report, the customs DG of Customs was saying they generated so much money. If the startups industry is supported, then you'll be having taxes. It will be companies' income tax, personal income tax, because the Nigerian companies will stay in Nigeria. So if they continue to collaborate with these guys who are innovators, who are forward-thinking, and support their dreams and ambitions as far as is legally permissible, then it would succeed.
What do you make of the South Africa? Let's just jump to cryptos now. Okay. The decision in South Africa, the FSCA, and what they've decided, what that means for cryptocurrencies and their regulation there.
Yeah, it means it's a very good thing for cryptocurrencies. Now, most of the Binance of those world, Luno and the rest, most of their biggest markets in Nigeria are Nigerians, even though the CBN has tried to ban it. So if South Africa is doing this, it means that South Africa is trying to do this to attract some of these guys. Okay, come our way, since Nigeria and other markets seem to be averse to you. It will mean that there will be most of the cryptocurrency companies who are trying to come into Africa will be looking at South Africa as their first stop rather than Nigeria, which is always Nigeria or Kenya or any other place, because crypto is sort of like the future of currency, the future of commerce, basically.
Yeah.
So I believe that.
What about the volatility? We look at crypto prices every morning to start the show. The volatility, the risks, scams, and all these other things. Are those still hurdles to crypto adoption?
Yeah, it's with everything there are always going to be risks. Now the volatility, like for example, Bitcoin that was pushing 50,000 and now is
under 20.
Yeah, exactly, it's under 20. So the volatility will always be an issue, but the thing is, if people are saying they want to trade a risky investment, quote unquote, because the SEC is almost saying they want to see it as an investment.
Right.
Yes. Although the CBN says they are seeing it as currency, which is why they are banning it. That's also the issue we have here. Yeah. If people are saying, I want to do a risky investment, and you're using centralized exchanges like Binance, Luno, those ones that have security, then why don't you allow them do it? Because it is, I'm putting my money in. So if you regulate Binance, then you are regulating the industry, because you say, okay, if you are trading on Binance or any centralized exchange, so as much as it's volatile, you are the one who has decided to do that. If you do that, you will see crypto brokers coming up. You will see crypto brokers, let's not use stock brokers, coming up saying, okay, since you are afraid of the volatility, we'll set up a firm where would help you invest and give you returns the same way every other person invests in shares. Shares plunge every day. And with us,
the Nigerian Stock Exchange is now just year to date up 3%. At one point it was up 17%. It's been a brutal week for the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So good example there. So for you as a tech lawyer, what does this all mean? Does this open things up as far as these frameworks being set up and everything? Are you excited with what you're seeing now?
I'm excited. If they implement it, I will be very excited, because for example, for us, most of the issues that tech lawyers face when we are helping our clients is getting regulatory compliance, getting licenses for clients, and it could take months, some things that could have taken days. Now, if this startup bill is actually implemented and they say everybody comes to the table and the council is ensuring that every agency like the CBN, SEC, and the rest are coming together to ensure that licenses are gotten, then for licenses, to make our lives easier, it will help us to be able to give time frames to our clients, to make our clients want to actually even use our services rather than going over our heads because of what happens sometimes.
Interesting stuff. It's all quite fair. Are you optimistic though about, as far as technology is concerned in Nigeria, the growth of the industry, what it means, jobs, innovation? Are you excited for the future?
I said I'm a hopeful Nigerian, so I'm always hopeful. I'm very excited and I'm hopeful that great things will come out of this.
Kofi Apori, tech finance lawyer, partner with Akron and Mustard. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.